ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So Lord Kapila is describing about how the recreation takes place. So in the last verse we had seen that from the subtle to gross creation takes place. And annihilation takes place from gross to subtle. When things are created, they are first created in their subtle state, which we also see in this material world. First there is a seed of the banyan tree. Gradually it becomes into a huge banyan tree. So, creation happens from subtle to gross. Annihilation happens from gross, gradually winding everything to subtle. So this we saw. We also saw when the Lord wanted to recreate, then from the energy of the Lord, the Mahat Tattva becomes illuminated, effulgent. The moment Mahat Tattva becomes effulgent, now it is ready for creation. So what happens? The first thing what happens is the darkness is gone. The darkness which was there existing because of the annihilation, the darkness is engulfed by Mahat Tattva. So then what happens? So then, now it is described, the first thing what happens in Mahat Tattva is, the Lord expands as Vasudeva. There are 4 different expansions of the Lord in Mahat Tattva. Originally also we see, this is the Lord re-entering into Mahat Tattva. We all understand, first the Lord expands as Balaram. Balaram as into quadruple expansion, it is there. Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Niruddha, Pradyumna. The Lord re-expands in Mahat Tattva into these 4 different expansions. The first expansion of the Lord in Mahat Tattva is Vasudeva. How that happens? That happens through the super soul. The Lord has already expanded himself as Karanodakshai Vishnu, Shirodakshai Vishnu. Shirodakshai Vishnu is the one who exists as super soul in everything, in every atom, in every living entity. The Lord exists as super soul. So this super soul first of all re-expands as Vasudeva, and this signifies pure consciousness which exists in the beginning of creation. You see, this is very important. Prabhupada explains, just like in the beginning when it rains, the rain is very pure, unadulterated. But the moment the rain comes in contact with material atmosphere, it becomes contaminated. So in the beginning, consciousness exists in Vasudeva state, unadulterated with any material modes, pure goodness. But gradually, the consciousness becomes contaminated. So, first thing which is manifested in Mahat Tattva, before mind, before senses, before sense objects, is pure consciousness which is manifested in the Mahat Tattva. So we should know all these things. How this Mahat Tattva begins expanding into this material universe. Very beautifully this is explained. It happens with Lord expanding as Vasudeva. That means pure consciousness exists in the beginning. Vasudeva is nothing but pure consciousness. Krishna consciousness, it is also called. Uncontaminated consciousness. So first thing which is manifested is consciousness or pure consciousness. And then this consciousness gradually will become degraded. So that is what happens. Then, second, if you see in this purport today, Prabhupada is explaining, the Lord further expands as Sankarshana, and from Sankarshana, false ego is created. That becomes manifested. From Vasudeva, pure consciousness becomes manifest, which later on will become degraded because of independent material desires of the living entity. And then again he has to exercise devotional service. He has to worship Vasudeva, because if he wants pure consciousness, which he has become degraded in, then he has to surrender to Lord Vasudeva. He has to worship him. Then once again he will become purified in his consciousness. Vasudevam sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlava. We will see this, Prabhupada describing this very nicely. Then what happens? Once consciousness is manifested, now our material desires have to be satisfied. Every living entity, we have desire. We want to lord it over this material nature. So then, the second expansion of the Lord, that becomes active. Sankarshana becomes active. That is manifested. So, because of Sankarshana, our false ego, ahankara, becomes manifested. And ahankara is manifested also in three states. Ahankara in goodness, when one thinks, I am very learned, I am very happy. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he feels, I don't want something more, I am very happy. Isn't it? That is also ahankara. So ahankara in the mode of goodness, ahankara in the mode of rajoguna, passion, where one works very hard in order to enjoy senses, that kind of ahankara, that is in the mode of passion. And then ahankara in the mode of tamoguna, which binds one to laziness in this material world. Irresponsibility, no responsibility. So that is called ahankara in the mode of tamoguna. So, just like in order to purify your consciousness, you have to surrender to Lord Vasudeva. Similarly, to get rid of ahankara, you have to worship Lord Sankarshana. Because he is the root cause. He is the one. Of course, it's not that he caused our ahankara, our desire. The Lord is only making that arrangement, because nothing happens without the Supreme Lord. Even ahankara does not come without the Supreme Lord's sanction. It is he who expands his ahankara in the form of sankarshana. He who creates. Even in that we are not independent. We want to enjoy materially, that material enjoyment, that ahankara to enjoy material enjoyment is also given by the Lord. So, it is said here, in order to get release from false ego, one has to worship sankarshana. So, in the material world, sankarshana is worshipped through Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada explains in the Vedic literatures, it is said, sankarshana is worshipped through Lord Shiva. How do we understand? There are two important factors to understand that. One is, the snakes which are occupying the body of Lord Shiva is the representation of sankarshana or ananta. We all understand sankarshana is nothing but Ananta Deva. So, the snakes on the body of Lord Shiva, they are the representation of Ananta or sankarshana. Another important thing by which we can understand why Lord Shiva should be worshipped to get rid of false ego is that Lord Shiva himself is always meditating on Lord Sankarshana or Lord Ananta. This you will find many places in Bhagavatam. What is Lord Shiva meditating upon? He is meditating on the Supreme Lord in the form of Sankarshana. That is the form he is meditating on. So, if someone worships Lord Shiva as a devotee of sankarshana, then he can get rid of ahankara. If somebody is worshipping Lord Shiva just to get some material desire as a devata, then one will not get free from ahankara. Then he will get material boons like Ravana got, but he will not get freedom. So that is possible if one worships Lord Shiva in that understanding as a devotee of Lord Sankarshana, then he can get freedom. So, this is another feature of the Lord as Sankarshana. Then, if one wants to get free from mental disturbances, one has to worship Aniruddha. So, after false ego is manifested, then from the goodness of that false ego, mind becomes manifested. And Aniruddha, that expansion of the Lord, is the director or the creator of this mind. He manifests this mind. So, very simple. So, if we are very disturbed in our mind, so if one wants to be free from mental disturbances, then he must worship Aniruddha. And in the material world, Aniruddha is represented by moon. So, in the Vedic literature, it is advised one worship moon in order to become free from mental disturbances, because he is worshipping Aniruddha. So that is also given. Similarly, Pradyumna, he expands himself as intelligence. And intelligence is actually from the mode of passion. Mind is from the mode of goodness. So, if one wants to be fixed in his intelligence on the Supreme Lord, then one must worship Pradyumna, that expansion of the Lord. let me see who heard the purport. Just like we saw, Sankarshana is represented by Lord Shiva and Aniruddha is represented by moon in this material world. Pradyumna, intelligence, Lord Brahma. So, to be fixed in one's intelligence, one has to worship Pradyumna, who is reached through the worship of Brahma. These matters are explained in the Vedic literatures. Actually, we can see how clear the Vedic literatures are, how consciousness becomes manifested, that is explained. Foolish people think matter combines together and consciousness comes into existence. Here, how consciousness comes into existence is clearly explained. The Supreme Lord expands as Vasudeva, and through him consciousness comes into existence in this material world. That is explained. How mind comes into existence, how false ego comes into existence, how intelligence comes into existence. And then further you will find these are original. Later on, with the combination of ahankara in mode of goodness, some agitation happens, then senses will come into existence. Sense objects will come into existence. How all these transformations will happen, Lord Kapila will keep on describing all those things very nicely. So here, if we see, Prabhupada is focusing on, even though there are 4 different expansions of the Lord, very important is this Vasudeva expansion of the Lord, or Shuddha Sattva. So, what is this Vasudeva platform? This is called as state in which one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva stage means, in this stage alone, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He cannot understand in Sattva Guna, he cannot understand in Rajoguna, one cannot understand the Supreme Lord in Tamoguna. When one has become completely free from all lower modes of material nature, untinged, untouched by lower mode, completely pure goodness, that is called as Vasudeva platform, or it is also called in Sanskrit as Shuddha Sattva. Here it is called as, somebody can read that. Here what it is called. What is there in the verse? Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva is called here as what? Vasudeva is correct. What is that Vasudeva called as? Sattva Gunam Swachham. It is not just Sattva Gunam, it is Swachha Sattva Gunam. Untinged Sattva Guna, unalloyed Sattva Guna, completely pure Sattva Guna. That platform is called as Vasudeva platform. In Bhagavad-Gita, this platform is also called Adbhuta. Adbhuta platform. That means it is wonderful platform. That even in the material world, even in the midst of all material contamination, one can still exist on Vasudeva platform, untouched by material modes of nature. So it is called Adbhuta also. And Prabhupada says, this is also called Krishna consciousness. That clear consciousness in which one becomes completely conscious of the Supreme Lord, that is called as Krishna consciousness. In Bhagavad-Gita, this Vasudeva platform is also called as one more. Kshetrajna. Kshetra is different, it is matter. Kshetrajna is consciousness. See, all these things we have to know. Vasudeva is a symbol of consciousness and pure consciousness. So in Bhagavad-Gita, there are two things described. Kshetra, Kshetrajna. Body is Kshetra. Knower of the body is called Kshetrajna. Now, who are the two knowers of the body? Shantanu? There are two knowers of the body. Two Kshetrajnas. Nishkinchana. Atma and Paramatma. The individual soul and the super soul. What is the difference between their Kshetrajna quality? Both are knower, but there is a difference. Yes. Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata. The super soul is the knower of all fields. Individual soul is knower of only his field, where he is given that place to act. He knows only that field. Whereas the super soul, because he is present in every field, he is the super knower. So there is a knower, there is a super knower. That super knower is called Vasudeva. So that is also very nicely described in Bhagavad-Gita. And Prabhupada describes another very beautiful thing. When the Supreme Lord is alone as his expansion as Vasudeva, he is called Vasudeva. He is without his internal energy. He is not accompanied with his internal energy. When the Supreme Lord is accompanied with his internal energy, he is called Dwarkadish. As a super soul, the Supreme Lord is existing in every living entity's heart, alone. But as our worshipable deity, the Supreme Lord exists as Dwarkadish or Vrindavan Chandra, Shyam Sundar, like that. So that is another understanding of Vasudeva. Then Prabhupada explains, Bhagavad-Gita, Vasudeva is again explained as someone who one must completely become aware of, and that possibility exists only after many, many lifetimes. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyate Vasudevam sarvam iti samahatma sudurlabha. When one will realize that everything in this material world is existing because of Vasudeva, everything, such a great soul is very rare. So this is how Prabhupada very nicely explains about this. Further, Prabhupada explains that actually, just like our consciousness becomes contaminated in this material world because of our independence, if we surrender to the Supreme Lord, our consciousness will become purified. Two things. The moment we declare our independence from the Lord, immediately Maya comes into picture and our marginal consciousness becomes contaminated. The moment the living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord, immediately his consciousness becomes purified. In today's conversation, there was a very nice understanding Prabhupada gave about this. So one devotee was asking, some of our disciples, it seems like they did many sinful activities, because in the previous conversation, answering one question, Prabhupada explained about Krita Punya Punjaha. Punjaha means heaps. When one has accumulated heaps of pious activities and his sinful reactions are finished, yeshantu antagatam papam, then one can take to the worship of the Supreme Lord. So then this devotee was confused and he said, Prabhupada, many of us have taken to Krishna consciousness and we were very sinful in our life. We have performed so many sinful activities. So where is Krita Punya Punja? Where we have performed heaps of punya activities to surrender to the Lord. Isn't it? So very nicely Prabhupada explains. Because they surrendered, all sinful activities are counteracted. Aham tvam sarve papebhyo mokshashyami masucha. See? One method of acquiring and getting rid of sinful activity is through pious activities. Another method is, Krishna, I just surrender unto you. Many lifetimes I was wandering, performing so many sinful activities. One just surrenders. Even till today, we understand this. Now we see that there are wars going on between one country and another countries. The soldiers are liable to be punished if he is caught. They can be executed, they can be killed. But if they surrender, they will be safe. Even till today this exists. If they surrender, that yes, finished, no more fight, then their rules exist that they will be freed later on. That is why they surrender. So similarly, even though unknowingly we may have committed so many different kinds of sinful activities, simply by this act of surrender, that my dear Lord, I have been wandering throughout, unknowingly committing so many sinful activities. Now from this day I just surrender unto you. So Krishna is assuring, Aham tvam sarve papebhyo sarva dharman parityaja. You just give up all other things. Surrender unto me. And I am giving this assurance, I will free you from all sinful activities, reaction of sinful activity. Sarve papebhyo, not one or two, sarve papebhyo mokshashyami. I will free you. But then Prabhupada also warns, not that daily I will commit sinful activities and daily I will surrender. Krishna, again I surrender. And again we do. No, that itself is a big offense. So that is very important. So Prabhupada is saying, anyone surrenders sincerely to the lotus feet of Krishna, immediately he becomes free from all reactions of sinful life. Because he saved, aham tvam sarve papebhyo mokshashyami. Don't worry, this is the process. So however one might have done or executed so many sinful activities, if he fully surrenders to Krishna, everything is counteracted immediately. But not repetition. I surrender to Krishna, again I will do sinful activity, and again I surrender. This business will not be allowed. This is called namno balad yasya hi papa buddhi. This is greatest sin. On the strength of Krishna's mercy, to go on repeating sinful activity, it is the greatest sin. Krishna can excuse you, am tvam sarve papebhyo mokshashyami masucha, but don't make it a business. I commit all sinful activity and surrender to Krishna to counteract. That is not good. This will not be allowed. Because you cannot cheat him, then you will suffer. So, this we can see that actually all of us practically, we have come from that kind of background where so much of impure consciousness we have been accumulating life after life, and it is just by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, carried by Srila Prabhupada, that actually we were able to somehow or other, even though we were in sinful life, Tara Sakshi Jagai Madhai. And the witness of this is that even the most sinful people like Jagai and Madhai, they were delivered by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, the only hope in this age of Kali Yuga, where people are, practically everywhere filled with sinful activities. I was reading yesterday in that Krishna book when I was preparing for the class. Prabhupada is explaining about dharma in the form of a bull is asking Mother Cow, Mother Earth, which is in the form of a cow. So Mother Cow was aggrieved, grief-stricken, tears are flowing from the eyes. So Dharma is asking different reasons. Is this the reason of your suffering? So, in one of the reasons, Dharma is saying, is it that because the administrators have become irresponsible, that people commit so many sinful activities and administrators are irresponsible? Rather, they are inducing people so many different ways, opening slaughterhouses, opening liquor houses, inducing people to commit sinful activities. So Prabhupada in that explains, in that purport Prabhupada is explaining, earlier Ajamila, who was from a Brahminical background, just by seeing one scene, otherwise he was very good in all his activities. If you read about his earlier life, you will be surprised. He was very gentle in his behavior, everything was there, controlled in his senses. But just by looking at one distraction, his whole spiritual life was finished. Imagine. Today, Prabhupada says, today, practically in every nook and corner, publicly you can see. What Ajamila saw in the forest, publicly, something which was very rare, is a common thing today. So, where is the question that one can be saved from all these different kinds of sinful activities, right? Very difficult. So Kali Yuga is the most horrible age for self-realization. Most horrible age. Dharma is saying, are you feeling worried? Are you in anxiety? Are you grief-stricken because 3/4 of my qualities are lost? In Satyuga, 100% Dharma. In Treta, another 25% gone. That means 50%, 75%. Then in Dwapar, 50%. Kali Yuga, only 25%. And by the end of Kali Yuga, practically everything will be finished. We can see this. Rampant, everything. All the symptoms of Kali Yuga, now itself they are rampant. By the time Kali Yuga advances, what will be the stage of Kali Yuga? You can just imagine. Isn't it? Horrible age actually. So we are very, 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 very fortunate. In the midst of Kali Yuga, there is a golden age of this 10,000 years of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, where one can take advantage, one can surrender to the Lord in spite of being sinful. We are all able to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we should try to make our life perfect, and as much as possible we should also share this understanding with the people to make them also fortunate in Krishna consciousness, because there is no other way. In this age, the only means of completely purifying our consciousness is just by Harinam Sankirtana. So the more we propagate the holy name of the Lord, the more people will become purified in their consciousness, and then they will become eligible to take up to Krishna consciousness, to surrender to the Lord. So we'll stop with this Granth Raj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki